Let's dive in. So, Judge Napolitano's recent take, huh? He argues that the US is headed toward bankruptcy, collapse, and even a breakup.
Yeah, I caught that. It's a bold claim, especially with all the talk about the deep state, unsustainable debt, and all those foreign wars.
Right, exactly. I mean, he lays out the idea that the deep state isn't just a conspiracy theory, it's this pervasive element driving policies that lead to ever mounting debt. And ultimately, it fuels the collapse.
So when he talks about unsustainable debt, is he referring mostly to fiscal policy or something broader?
It's kind of both, actually. He sees the US government accruing trillions in debt, which, in his view, is unsustainable. That debt fuels foreign wars, and that just pushes the whole system, the economic and political structures, closer to breakdown.
Yep.
That's the gist.
Interesting. And he makes a connection between these foreign wars and the internal breakdown, like wars abroad draining resources.
Exactly. It's like the US is stretching itself too thin. The money spent on endless foreign engagements contributes to domestic deficits. And that unsustainable financial pressure forces the country into real structural shifts, possibly even a breakup of regional power bases.
So, in his view, the US isn't just on the brink economically, but politically fragmented as well.
Right, and that's a key point. He argues that these internal fractures, fueled by both economic collapse and ideological battles, could lead to the country breaking apart into even smaller, more manageable entities. It's like watching an old building crumble under its own weight.
I get that analogy, but don't you think that's a drastic extrapolation? I mean, the US has lots of institutional buffers, right?
That's a fair challenge, I agree. It does sound extreme on the surface. But Napolitano's argument rests on the premise that these buffers have been eroded over time, largely by the same policies that pile on the debt. So
Yep.
very slowly, these safeguards crumble.
And he ties this erosion directly to what he calls the deep state. How is he defining that exactly?
It's not a tidy definition, but essentially, he views the deep state as the entrenched bureaucracy and power structures that prioritize their own survival over the good of the public. So, imagine a system that constantly makes decisions to maintain power, even if those moves eventually lead to economic strain and social unrest. That's
Right.
the idea.
So, he sees these institutional elites as partly responsible for ushering in these crises because they ignore warning signs?
Exactly. And it's like they're so busy perpetuating their own agendas that they fail to steer the country clear of disaster, a sort of self-inflicted wound, if you will.
And what about the foreign wars? Does he say they're more than just a financial drain?
Absolutely. He argues that these wars are not only costly in dollars, but they also drain the nation's resolve and divert focus from solving internal issues. It's a sort of double whammy. Money is spent on external conflicts, and it further destabilizes the domestic order. It's a
Yep.
vicious cycle.
You know, it kind of reminds me of that old saying, fighting outside while the house burns down.
Exactly, that's the analogy I was thinking of too. It's like they're so wrapped up in conflicts abroad, they practically let their own house go up in smoke. And that's something he really leans into.
I mean, look, on one hand, there's merit in criticizing overblown foreign policy, but on the other, isn't a complete collapse and breakup a bit sensational?
That's where the critique comes in. While his points are provocative, one might say they lack nuance in terms of how resilient and adaptable American institutions can be.
Yeah.
I see that perspective too.
So essentially, he sets up this scenario where unchecked debt accumulation, a self-serving deep state, and constant foreign conflict ultimately lead to a domino effect of economic, political, and territorial disintegration.
That's precisely it. It's like a row of dominoes, each one representing unsustainable policies, and when one falls, they all follow. And it all starts with decisions that many consider minor, but piled up over time, they become catastrophic.
And speaking of catastrophic, how do people react to his message? I mean, it's pretty alarming.
Well, the video itself got hundreds of thousands of views in just a week, so it's clearly striking a chord. People are either nodding in agreement or thinking it's a bit too alarmist.
Yeah.
Definitely polarizing reactions.
I can imagine. And he's not alone. There are others like Jeffrey Sachs and Richard Wolff who have sounded the alarm with similar dire warnings, isn't that right?
Right, there's a whole ensemble of voices that underline the risk of unsustainable fiscal policies and military overreach. but Napolitano seems to bring a unique angle by linking these directly to the idea of a potential breakup of America.
Yep,
And that's a notion that grabs attention.
it really does. Now, out of curiosity, did he suggest any solutions, or is it more of a warning shot?
Mostly, it's a warning, a call for awareness. He's challenging the status quo and, in a way, accusing entrenched power structures of neglecting the country's future. There's almost an urgent plea to re examine policies before it's too late. Very much a wake up call.
That urgency, though, might also have the unintended effect of deepening divisions, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I agree with that critique. The hyperbolic nature of his predictions can, arguably, contribute to further polarization instead of fostering substantive debate.
Yeah.
Sometimes cautionary voices come off as inflammatory.
It's a delicate balance, shouting the truth about hard issues without being dismissed as a conspiracy theorist.
Exactly. And you know, his background as a former New Jersey Superior Court judge gives him a bit of gravitas, but it also means his claims are interwoven with his ideological leanings, which can be both a strength and a weakness.
Right? It's like you trust his legal insight, yet you might question whether his political bias colors the analysis too heavily.
Precisely. And that's what makes his presentation so compelling and controversial. The mix of authority and high stakes predictions just forces you to look at the bigger picture of where the country might be heading. It really
Yep.
gets you to think critically.
And in the end, even if we don't all agree with his conclusions, the conversation he sparks about fiscal responsibility, the cost of foreign policies, and internal power struggles is a necessary one.
Absolutely. The debate around these issues is vital. Whether or not we believe in an impending collapse, it's a reminder, it's like a caution sign, to reassess where we're heading and to maybe recalibrate our priorities before things spiral out of control.
All in all, his perspective challenges us to think, question, and discuss the sustainability of current policies. While it might be a bit extreme for some, it undeniably forces a conversation that many find overdue.
Exactly. It's a call to examine the deep-seated issues within the system. And yeah, even if his predictions may seem hyperbolic, sometimes it's these provocative viewpoints that push us to explore alternatives, or at least understand the potential risks. That's the takeaway.
Yes. Well, it's certainly a perspective that leaves us with plenty to chew on. Thanks for walking through it with me.
Anytime. It's always stimulating to break down these complex ideas, especially when they're as charged as this one.
Yeah.
Definitely food for thought.